Good evening. We thank everyone for joining us. It is time for our seat at the table. Tonight, we are elated to have you join us. Please tell them that he's busy. Sorry about that. But we got people knocking on our door in the midst of us getting ready to get started for tonight's conversation. And as we all know, that we have all been busy at some point in time in our life. And no matter how busy we are, we still have to find time to have a moment of prayer, of study, and of worship with our Savior. So, tonight, one of the biggest things that I looked at is that it's a Tuesday. We're in July. What has changed from January to July the 9th? Have you seen any change, any growth, any maturity in ourselves? Because one of the biggest things that I look at is that many people could tell you what they see, but it really matters with what you see in yourself. Have you grown? Have you matured? What areas have you grown in? Can you tell that you've grown?
And that's absolute because tonight's topic is what are you holding on to? What are you still carrying? What things have you allowed yourself to actually rid of, get rid of? What have you done in the first 6 months of this year that have put you in that position of growth that you can tell that growth? So tonight, we're talking about you're holding on to. What have you grasped that has hindered, that has enhanced, that has stifled, that has put you in position where it has caused you to be at a place to where there is no growth. It has stunted. In other words, it has kept you from being able to reach the level that you want to be able to uh, get to. You set certain goals. You started the year off with what you called a resolution. You was resolved of where you wanted to be. And so many people have continued for years and years and centuries creating New Year's resolutions, and they have not been able to fulfill them. And the bad part is that we don't stay consistent. We're not consecutive in what we do. We don't stay disciplined in them mentally, physically, emotionally. We don't allow ourselves to psychologically stay in position to be able to move forward in what we put in place. Then there are some of us, it depends on what it is that we allow our involvement to be more consistent in other areas than in the primary areas where we wanted to be in. So, welcome tonight. So, I want to know tonight, and we just finished dealing with Blessed Get Free. We want to be free from so many things, so many other things that we allow ourselves to harbor. So when you look at the thing that we're talking about tonight, what are you holding on to? We hold on to hatred, animosity, bitterness. We hold on to resentfulness. We hold on to the fact of what others have done, how they did it, when they did it, how they did it, the mere fact that we're waiting to see when they're going to do again, when the opportunity arises. We look to see how soon it will be before they do it. We are governing what will constitute them doing it again. Instead of being able to move forward, we use the words, it's okay, Yes, I forgive you. Then we'll turn around, I forgive you, but I won't ever forget what you did. And there really is no forgiveness. And we hold on to a lot of things. And well, we'll stay together, but I won't forget what you did me. And you sit back and you stuck the ability to be able to move forward, to progress, for progression, for growth, for the opportunity of growth to take place, for doors to open, for you to be able to move past, to be able to engage in being able to have a healthy conversation, emotional, mental, affectionate, to be able to get to the next level in knowing each other, loving each other, understanding each other, knowing why you was able to get to the place that you are, receiving the things that you need to receive. You can't even accept the love that the other person is trying to give, or understand the mere fact that they are remorseful, they are genuinely sorry, they have really gotten to the place that they are doing everything that can possibly be done to not put themselves in a position to harm you, hurt you verbally, emotionally, physically, to put you in a place to where you feel uneasy, that you are at a place to where you don't feel that you can trust them, or they can now rebuild that trust again, because now you feel that that breach have been so bad that you won't allow it to be rebuilt. And it can be, but you don't allow it to be, because you are now so bent on the fact that it has been broken. Okay, it has been broken, but if it can be mended, it can be fixed, and you want it to be fixed, and that's what you're saying. You still stuck on the fact that mentally you won't let it go. And every time you see them, you're looking at the fact that this happened before. I've been down this road. I know what this feeling is. And I don't believe that I can allow it to happen. You want to allow them to touch you, get close to you. You want to allow them to say anything to you. You can't be in the same room with them. But yet at the same time, you don't want them to be out of the room with you. You can't stand the sight of them. But yet at the same time, you cannot stand not being able to see them. You at the same place, you calling them all day, you're texting them all day. You have these issues where you trust but don't trust. You have these feelings where you want to be bothered but you don't want to be bothered, but at the same time you want to let go but you're afraid to let go. And now you are beating yourself up. John said in his epistle, 1 John, I believe it's chapter 3 or chapter 4, you have now gotten to the place where you have reverted back to becoming out. You have now been immature in the maturity that you had, because you grew up, you had grown, you have grown together, but now you have reverted back, because in that immaturity, you become so afraid that what has happened now, you manipulated yourself so much in fear that you are now tormented by the fact that it could happen again. When will it happen? How soon will it happen? What are they going to do? You're watching everything they do. You can't let them go to the bathroom by themselves. They can't go to the kitchen by themselves. You're calling them on the job. You're finding who they're close with on the job. You're asking, their best friend. You're calling their mama. You're calling their sister. You're calling their brother. You're calling everybody. You got the neighbor looking to see who's at the house when you're not at home. And it's sad. You're asking the children, your children, their children, what's going on? You're tormented by fear, because you have the fear of allowing yourself to be able to relax and begin to move forward, because you're holding on to the fact that there was something that took place. There was a breach in whatever the trust was, the contract was. Something took place. That was something that brought it about. That was something that caused it to happen. There was a reasoning behind why that took place in the first place. So now you have to figure out what it was. You knew what it was. They knew what it was. Now you have to implement something so it does not happen again. So what are you holding on to tonight? You know what it is. You know what took place. You know what it was that brought it about. You know why you felt uneasy, why you became uncomfortable, what brought you to the place of starting to have the thoughts, or begin to get to the place to where you change your mannerism, your behavior, your habits, your conversation, what you were doing, your dealings, how you were dealing with the things that you were dealing with, how you begin to change your conversation. Good evening, family. Welcome to all of you tonight. So what we're talking about tonight again is, what are you holding on to? The reason why you can't trust somebody as a friend, as a father, as a sister, as a brother, as a mother. The reason why you have so much animosity towards changing jobs, why you can't trust somebody to be your boss, why you can't take orders from somebody, why somebody can't tell you what to do, why you feel the way you feel in what's going on. The reason why you have issues with being in any form of what you consider organized religion, any form of church, anybody that you consider a pastor, a teacher, anything that's considered to be governing you, that has anything to do with leadership, you have a problem with it. When it comes down to any kind of relationship, friendships, you have issues with it because somebody broke that bond. And you will not allow yourself into any kind of what you would consider to be a contractual agreement with anybody. You won't let them in that space. You won't let them get close to you. You won't allow them to be considered a friend. They're not even considered an associate. They just somebody I know. They somebody that, I often talk with. We always around each other. We just hang out. But in your mind, in your heart of hearts, you consider them to be your closest friend, but you won't allow the words to come out your mouth. You have them as a person that you consider to be in a relationship with, but you won't use the word relationship. You won't use the word partner. You won't even consider being in another marriage because of things that happened before. You can get in this conversation at any given time. Because when you're talking about holding on, especially young kids that may have been hurt by mom, hurt by dad, or children that have been in and out of foster care, or kids that have been around aunts or uncles that seem like they had more love for one niece or nephew than they had for another. Or it seemed like one cousin was seen to be treated better than another cousin. Or you had a teacher, y'all know you always had that one child that in the classroom was considered the teacher's pet, right? I've been a teacher's pet in class before. And, the teacher's pet seemed to always get their way, go different places in the school, always had, the hall pass, got out of, certain things in the class, didn't do certain things that the other kids did, always seemed to get the little trinkets, the little treats and stuff in the class, and the teacher always let them do things that the other kids didn't get to do. They got a little more time on the playground than the other kids got, or they got to get out of class before the other kids got out of class, or they didn't have as much homework as everybody else. Y'all know the little teacher's pet. Y'all know how it was. Or they, got to do certain things, right? Mm-hmm. So you tend to have issues with them. Same thing when it came down when we played sports. It seemed like, the coach favored somebody more than they favored other people. When it looks like even in the world that we live in now, it seems as though one group of people, one race of people seem to be superior to another. If it seemed like one child seemed to be smarter than another child, or a group of kids in the class seemed to have more understanding than another group of kids in the class, it was never a thing where the teacher found out what it was that was causing the other not to be able to understand the lesson than the others. They were deemed to be, and I know this is going to really bother some people. They was either deemed to be retarded, slow learners, and all the other names that they classified it as. And they were put out till you found out. Some kids had dyslexia. Some kids had, problems being able to understand. So now you have 504 classes, and these kids seem to be smarter than the other kids that were smart. And half the smart kids were the ones that were actually cheating in the class. They had pieces of paper that the teacher didn't realize that they were actually bringing into class because they had information that they had hid, and they was good at what they were doing in cheating. But when life came, they could not cheat on life. It's why I said, I think on one of our lives that we did when we sat down at the table, you find a whole bunch of malpractice suits, whole bunch of lawyers that people case where you got people in prison now for things that they shouldn't be in prison for because the lawyer could not really argue the case. They would not know what they were doing. They got a law degree because they was able to pass the bar exam and somebody passed the bar exam for them. Or they was able to get the information, but they did not know how to argue the case. Mm-hmm. So we have a whole lot of things that are going on. Or you got all of these engineers that now are having engineering jobs, and now we got bridges falling all over the place. Mm-hmm. Because they use inferior material. Mm-hmm. Planes falling out of the sky. Right now, Boeing is in a lot of trouble because they consider to be a company now that is considered to be what they called it this morning.
And they are a corporate
felon. They are a business that is considered to be a felony. They have a felon on their record. In other words, they're going to be scrutinized by everything that they do. And anytime they get ready to make anything when it comes down to aerodynamics and anything considered to be put on an airplane, aviation going to be really on their back. And because they have caused many people lives to be lost and they ain't paying nobody, but they're paying back the federal government, guess what?
They became collateral damage.
And it's bad. So when you look at this, and these families have an issue because our government held them to be a corporate felon, but they have not held them accountable for the lives that have been lost. Yet engines that have fallen off, engines that have blown out, planes that have fallen out of the sky, doors that have popped off in the middle of flights, so many things that have taken place, pilots that have lost their lives along with everybody else. And sorry, as the old folk used to say back in the day, don't shine my shoes. So what are we holding on tonight? Then you have kids that have gone through, as you heard me say briefly a second ago when we started, as Evangelist turned it over to me, you have so many kids that are harboring and fostering anger because mama wasn't able to take care of them and daddy wasn't there. They went through so many issues going through what they consider to be the system, and going through the system you had various parents that the opportunity to parents, but wasn't parents as they should, and parents that done things or allowed things. And when they tried to tell them what was going on, they ignored what was taking place, because with most of these parents in foster care, it was all about a dollar. And when they tried to tell the worker that was the worker over them while they were in foster care, that was supposed to be watching over them, they didn't do anything about it as well. And they just thought these kids were troublemakers because some of these kids got in trouble because of what was going on, and they were moved in and out. But if you were being placed from here to there and there to here and from there to everywhere, and you now are acting out because, hey, there's an issue, there's a problem, something's going on, I'm crying out, something is not taking place as it should. So my mannerism, my behavior, my display is trying to tell you. So now my resentfulness now is showing you that, hey, there's a cry for help. But we don't look at it like that, because we assume that the child is doing that because they just don't want to be here. And a lot of times, it's not just because the child didn't want to be there. It's because what's going on where the child is at. It's not always just not a good fit. It's where they're at isn't just a good fit. It's what's going on with the people that's there. And they take all the time the word of the parent over the child instead of really doing a thorough, full investigation on what's going on. While they said they investigated the parents to see if it would be a good fit and they would be able to be fitted in foster care, but you didn't do a full psychological evaluation on the parent or the children that's in the parent house. You didn't make sure that when you brought them in that it would bring a balance of what was going on because of what the child had already been through before you put them in there, to ensure that it would be not just a safe environment or give them a place to lay their head, or these people were just looking for some financial backing. You got to think about it. So the child now harbors a whole lot. because you already know they're either missing a sibling if there was more than one sibling involved. They're already missing a parent, irregardless of whether mama was on drugs, daddy was on drugs, or there was abuse that was in the home. It was still their parent. So now you got to find a way to be able to foster a means and method, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and physically, to help them to be able to get to the place that they can now begin to gradually gravitate to accepting that here's where I am, to get where I want to be able to accept where I'm going through this process, so that it's not as hard. Now, that may sound easy to some, but at the end of the day, the process is what has to take place to gravitate to the steps to get them to recognize, to move through. Our system is set up to split. And it doesn't matter the race of the child, the system is still set to separate instead of collaborate and keeping together, which would balance so that they can move forward in it. Unless there were some things that happen between the siblings that you have no choice but to separate them for the moment, because the siblings had some things that took place that caused you to now have no choice but to divide them. And even in doing that, they're still siblings. Am I making any sense? So now when those things do take place and the child don't fully understand, because depending on the ages of the children, those children are only looking at one thing. That's mama, that's daddy. And if one of the parents don't want to be involved, and now you have a parent in a place you place them that now is harboring issues because this ain't my child. And don't let the child don't look like what the parent want them to look like, and they have an issue because of that. And now you're mishandling, you're mistreating, you're talking down, you're treating them in such a manner that makes them feel worse than what they already are, because you're not taking the time to find out anything about the child to try to get them to, get to a place to at least, accept the place where they are. If they don't accept who you are, but they accept the place where they're at, to begin to create a balance so that they can begin to at least live in the place where they are, if that makes any sense. See, that makes sense to me. And that made sense to me as a kid when I saw some of these things happening to some of the kids that I came in contact with as a kid. So this is where my mindset have always been, not just as an adult, but as a kid, seeing some of these things happen and knowing that some of the kids that I went to school with, that's what happened to them. That's what they went through. That's what they were going through. And listen to that, some of the things they said. So now those things resonate in my mind. Why do they not do that? And they shared this with some of the workers that they had. But the workers still didn't care. Because if they cared, they would have shifted their attitude, their behavior, their mindsets, and their mannerisms to the kids. So now some of these children now begin to foster anger. They begin to find ways and methods to now begin to do other things, to act out, to get out, or they ran away, or they got involved in things that they shouldn't have got involved in, to now find a place of solace, a place of being wanted, of being accepted, a place of family. And some of those things was in places that they really didn't want to be. Then when the parent did now get to the place where they were at a place where they were mentally capable, psychologically able, physically fit, emotionally stable, now the child don't want to be involved. They don't want to know them. And the parent forced themselves on them. So they're harboring hatred. They're ready to do some things to them because now they're grown up and they feel they are man enough, or mannish enough, or womanish enough to now come at them in the wrong way, and it creates other problems. So what are we holding on to? And then when they do become men and women, it creates other issues and problems. So that's why I'm asking tonight, what are we holding on to? Evangelists asked me all week long and all yesterday and all day today, what you got? What we gonna talk about? I have no idea. So God didn't give me nothing. And just a few hours ago is when I got it.
But one of the things that I look at, because a lot of times whenever I know that when people come across our videos, we are talking about the issues. But one of the biggest things that I look at as a body of Christ, we deal with stuff. And a lot of times people don't know that we're dealing with our own struggles. And it affects us through our health. I was asking my husband, I said, I noticed that a lot of times the body of Christ have health issues. And it's because of the fact that a lot of us don't talk. We keep everything to ourselves. We have been taught that you pray about it, but there's also some work that we have to do about it. And if you saw me whenever he was talking that I had turned around, if you could see, you see I got two different glasses.
You got to hold it up to the camera.
There are two different glasses based on two different styles. But the biggest thing is that I wanted you to see that one is thin and one is thick. Thin and thick. But I want you to understand that all it takes is one fall or one of these to drop. One going to break in little pieces. One's going to break in big pieces.
Mm-hmm.
The one that break in big pieces, you have a greater chance of being able to put it back together.
That's right.
But the one that's thin, when it breaks, it's going to shatter, and it's going to break in smaller pieces. And whenever it breaks in smaller pieces,
mm-hmm.
it's not so easy to put it back together.
That's right.
And one of the biggest things that I look at, he was saying, what are you holding on to? And a lot of times we say, I'm not holding on to anything. I'm not holding on to anything. And whenever you look at it, and we look at society and we look at the world today,
mm-hmm.
if you look at it, I was sharing with my sister when we went up to go visit. I said, you know what? We are slowly growing into now becoming the seniors of our families now.
Yes.
I said, and whenever you look at it and you think about it,
mm-hmm.
our adult children now are starting to take the place where we were at.
Right.
And whenever you think about it and you think about the stuff that you've been through, first of all, as a parent, every last one of us do pretty much the same thing that our parents did.
Mm-hmm.
Try to avoid our kids from going down a lot of the same paths that we chosen.
Right.
We try to lead and guide them and try to get them to go another route.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they just don't understand it, why it is that you choosing to try to get them to go down a different avenue. Exactly. I remember sharing with one of mine, I said, you know what? I cried some tears that you don't have to cry.
Mm-hmm.
But if you choose to cry them, I want you to understand that that was your path that you chose to go.
Exactly.
It wasn't that you had to go that path. It was a choice that you made
mm-hmm.
to go. So whenever you shared your tears, I need you to understand those are your tears. They're not mine.
Exactly.
A lot of our young people act as though they're angry with us, but for what? And a lot of it is the anger that we have displayed that they have seen. A lot
True.
of us can be as good in our house, because one of the biggest things that I look at, and I always go back to my childhood, and if you ever hear me talk, I always talk about myself, mm-hmm. because I could talk about me, I could talk about my life, right. because I personally know my own life. Mm-hmm. So whenever I look at it and think about it, one of the biggest examples that I remember is that my mama said, it is my place to teach you how to live.
Yes.
It is my place to be the first example of what life is to you.
Right.
And I learned that because now that I am a parent, I tell my kids all the time, it is my place to be your first example. Mm-hmm. If I fall and I mess up, it is my place to get things back in line and show you how to get back right.
Exactly.
Whenever we look at it and we think about it, one of the biggest things is that I noticed that in my life, my parents had separated when I was 2. Mm-hmm. And whenever I had children, I always wanted my children to have a relationship with their outside parent, because right. I was one of them that felt we don't have to be together to parent.
Exactly.
Both of us can be parents and active in our children's life. But anybody that had kids and you were never married, you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody chooses not to, because in my instance, it was a choice that either you're going to do it or you're not.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing you're not going to do is you're not going to go inside and out of their life.
Exactly.
And whenever I made that decision, I still had to look, because my children was going to grow up one day wanting to know, why wasn't you there? The same exact questions that I had from my parent whenever they had split up, is that I always remembered all I ever wanted was that relationship with my outside parent. Right. And whenever I made that decision, was I wrong? Deep in my heart, I feel that I wasn't. But I also look at the feelings that they have to go through. Why? Because those were a lot of the same exact feelings that I had. Mm-hmm. So whenever we look at it and it says, what are you holding on to? No matter how much we say that we have overcome from this situation, whenever we see these things again, it opens up a wound.
Exactly.
It's like what has healed has now been injured. Mm-hmm. And I say that because of the fact that those emotions, whoever really deal with them, is where I'm going. Because what everybody seems to see is what's thick, what's hard, and what's heavy. And deep down inside, you know exactly where you at. You may just be this thin piece of crystal about ready just to explode.
That's right.
Because of the fact that there has now been something that came back into your life that you knew deep in your heart of hearts, that you felt that you were over. And you want to know how you want to know when you feel like it's over? And you may not pay attention that it really may not be over. It's sometimes the passion in our voice.
Exactly.
Let others see that what we said we were over, whenever you said that you were over it, you really was never over it. Exactly. Because why? Because what was in you started to come up out of you. And the sad part of it is can we really be honest with ourselves? Not with nobody else, because it's not about anybody else. If you hear anytime we come to the table, it's to encourage you that you don't have to worry about everything else, because a lot of stuff is just outside noise. And it comes to distract us from doing what God really called us to do. Because whenever we're actually walking in true healing, whenever those things come back up, it doesn't open up all types of feelings. It doesn't open up all types of emotions. Because why? I have truly been set free.
Now think about it. Think about it, Evangelist. You said when we look at the fact and find out that we have not really gotten over it, is when it come back up. It is not just when it come back up, it's when certain things are said. It is how those things are said. It is the manner in which they are said in. It's the fact that we've gotten so used to, or we just allowed ourselves to build certain walls, or we put up certain walls, or we actually displace what was going on for the moment, because we were enjoying the mere fact that they were there. We were having a good time, was enjoying what was going on. It was the fact that they were now back and we was getting along real good, and we just laid aside the fact that they hadn't been there, they wasn't doing anything, and they hadn't spent any time. And now that they are spending time, and then all of a sudden now they said something that actually pulled the scab off, because you said open the wound. The wound never really healed. What the wound was, it was healing, but the scab hadn't fallen off. And when you get a scab, the scab is that last piece of the flesh that right before it falls off is still hanging on to the meat. And when the healing is all the way done and you really didn't put no Band-Aid or nothing on it, and you just put the ointment on the top of it. Remember, we used to have a little Blue Star ointment and all of that other stuff. You put it on there, you get some triple antibiotic ointment or whatever the cream is you decide to put on it, and it finally get that little hard little scab on it. And every time you knock the scab off, it start bleeding, and then it start closing itself up. So that's what happened. You knock the scab off, or like my grandmother would say, you just knock the bark off of it. So you knock the bark off it again, and it's right at the end before the skin finally close all the way up, and you done hit the scab and you done pull the scab off, and you got that blood coming out. And that's what tend to happen when certain people come back in your life, whether it's mama, daddy, old boyfriend, son or daughter, and you was just enjoying the fact that they didn't say something that hurt you to your heart. I'm so sick of you. You just want me to do this. You want me to do it. I'm sorry I ever came back. I'm sorry I even spent any time with you. Just certain things that were going to cut you to your heart because you were healing, but you had not healed. And what it did, it reopened the wound that never really closed. But because when God heals you, he heals you completely. So the wound is completely sealed. There's no scab on the top. The only thing that happens is it will open another wound, not the same wound. But because you hadn't completely been healed, you were still healing. And while we're going through the healing process, we got to be careful that we don't just push certain things aside and allow things to still come, because we still able to get infected. And what happened is there's infection under the skin, because you get pus. You got the pus up under the skin, and now you done pushed all of this old gooky and yellow and green and white stuff from under the skin, and now you have no antibiotics to to really push everything out. So you done knocked the scab off. Now you got pus coming out of it. Now you got to wait for the blood to come out, and that's what happened. And that's why you feel so sore. That's why you feel so agitated and aggravated. So now you start saying hurtful things. You start saying mean things. You start going back to the cussing and the fussing, and you say, I wish you were dead. I'm sorry I ever let you back in my life. I'm sorry I even laid back down with you, things of that nature. And that's what tends to happen. And you're right, because what happened, the wound never really closed. It never really sealed. You never had an opportunity, so it never closed. You actually opened it back up because you didn't give yourself the opportunity for it to totally close up. That's what happened when we talk about soul ties. We never really allow ourselves to get over somebody else or something else before we allow something or somebody else to come in our life. And we want to bring mama back. We want to bring daddy back. We want to bring our son or daughter back. Or even if death has taken place, we automatically go and get something now to fill the void of what now we feel is missing, instead of allowing God to really fill us with something that will now sustain us in the process of him filling us with now the thing that we feel have been physically taken away from us. So that's what tends to happen as well. And it goes along with everything that you just said. It doesn't minimize anything you said. It adds to it, because you're right. Now you mad, you upset. It reopened because it never closed. It never got a chance to really seal. And even after it has sealed, it's still sore, even after the scab have fallen off, because the moment you hit it up or brush it up against something or somebody hit it, you still feel the pain. But when it's completely healed from the inside and the outside, not just the outside, but the inside and the outside, then I'm not only finished with the healing process, but I am healed, because I can bump it up against something and I don't feel no pain. Now, if you had a broken bone or anything like that, when the weather changes, the barometric pressure on the outside of the body as well as on the inside of the body, you feel a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And we know that from my neck, from my back, your back, and what have you. It changes because it feels like there's a squeezing going on, because it changes the pressure on the outside to the inside of the body, and it feels like your body's being crushed when it's not. So you got to equalize the pressure. That's why you apply a little pressure from the outside of your body to the inside of your body, and it equalizes the pressure from the outside to the inside, from the inside to the outside. So this is what has to happen with us. We got to allow ourselves to do that. So it goes back Jesus said. I think you read it, Matthew chapter 28, chapter 24, something like that. You read week before last, when the house had been clean and swept, and the demon had been ran out. He go in the far country, find him 7 other spirits more wicked than him, come back to find the house, ain't been filled with anything. And that's what happened. We don't fill ourselves with something that will sustain us. So what has been moved out don't have an opportunity to bring something worse than what it is back in, because what left know what to do to gain access. And because it know what to do to gain access, it brings somebody else with it that can now really wreak greater havoc, because the last state that we was in gonna cause us to be worse than what we were in the first place. So that's what happens in our relationships. And that's why if we have not really allowed ourselves to remove what we're holding on to, oh, we're going to really get it. That's whether we in church, out of church, whether we've been a part of the church, in the choir, on the motherboard, on the usher board, whether we're part of the deacon ministry, whether we're part of the greeting ministry, whether we're part of the feeding ministry, whether we cutting grass at the church or not, we're going to find ourselves somebody no longer part of the church that we're at now, and they done went and joined some other church, and now we got to go to that church. We're going to see them. We're going to turn our lips up, turn our nose up. We ain't going to be able to pray. We ain't going to be able to preach. We ain't going to be able to sing. We ain't going to be able to serve, or we can march in with the choir. As soon as we see them, we're going to turn our nose up, or we're going to get up and we're going to really try to, bear down, and we ain't going to be praising God. We're going to be praising people. Or we see them in the street, we're going to say all kind of stuff to make sure that they hear what we're saying, because we want to do them some harm.
I was just going to say that's what we tend to do in the body of Christ, is that whenever we see someone, and this is the biggest thing that I look at, is that we know who we either done did something wrong to, or we felt that they done did something wrong to us. A lot of times what tends to happen is you're holding on to something when that person is trying to reach out to you so that y'all can move from that place. Because that place is holding you back and holding them back. But some of us hold on to the issue longer than it has to be held to.
Exactly.
And that becomes now, as your favorite word is, a choice. You choose to hold on to something longer than it has to be held on to. I think I was sharing with you is that biologically, by my mother and my father, I am classified as a only child.
Right.
I have siblings by my father, but I am classified as a only child. When I see brothers and sisters arguing and fussing, and they say such negative things about each other, and I be looking at that thinking, how is it that you can say that? But if something happened to mama or your daddy, these are the people that you're going to be sitting on the front row with, holding hands, crying, hugging each other, saying, how are we going to make it through this? And you're looking for that person to have your back. If you can look for that person during a time of need, you should be able to look for that person whenever it's not the time of need. We should be able to calm down and come back and revisit what it is that I felt or you felt that I've said or I've done for us to work out these issues. It should not be that it's 10 and 20 years, because one of the biggest things that I look at is once the breath has left the body, there is no way you can get an apology. So now you sit down here, you wrapped around, and you wondering what it is, because 9 times out of 10, you tend to forget now. I don't even remember what it is that we fought about. Or the fact that I always tell my children, because one of the biggest things that I try to get both of my kids to understand is that whenever my dad transitioned, I was 16. So there was no sitting down and having a conversation about what it was that I felt was wrong or that I felt could have been done different. But one thing he knew before he left and his eyes closed, and my mama took me to that hospital to see him before he transitioned out, the last thing he ever heard from me, even on a telephone call, was, I love you.
Well, think about it. So many people have been taught that you go to the grave and you can sit at the grave, bring you a chair. And this is with blacks as well as with whites, because we've been taught and told you can go to the grave, sit at the grave. And the Bible calls it necromancy. And we sit there and we want to talk to mom, we want to talk to daddy, we want to talk to grandma, we want to talk to our son or our daughter that had passed and died. And we think that we're hearing back from them because we sit so long, and we tend to psychologically psych ourselves into believing that we have. Now, biblically, God have told us not to do these things. David tells us in the Psalm that there's no remembrance in the grave. There's no voice from the grave. But we'll sit there and we'll do this. And I used to ask my mother them when I was a child, why are we going to the grave? Why are we going to sit? You said we're going to see who? I thought they were dead. How we going to see grandma? How we going to see auntie? How we going to see so and so and such? And I couldn't understand. I said, but don't the Bible say such and such? Well, this is what we always. I said, hold up, wait a minute. And a lot of this comes from tradition, from our heritage as black folk and as white folk. Period. This is what everybody did. And you see in a lot of graveyards, they got chairs and they go sit out there and they go talk. You got people laying by the grave and you're talking to mama and you're talking to dad. You got even in the Old Testament where the witch Endor, she did a lot of things. You got things that God tell us not to, and we still do it. You got saved folk that are still doing these things, and we all right with it. That's not God. First of all, I'm not going to the grave to talk to my mama. My mama and I talked a long time before she died. My dad and I talked a long time before he died. Both of them. So at the end of the day, I need us to understand that if you didn't get it right before they left here, you're not going to get it right now that they're gone. And a lot of folk walk around because you're trying now to figure out a way to get God to allow you to go to seances. You want to get Ouija boards. And all of these things, again, are witchcraft or demonic and everything else. You want to go find everybody and their mama to now cast spells. You want to get everybody to throw some bones. You want everybody to conjure up all kinds of things to now bring these folk back so that you can just hear their voice one time. Lord, just let me hear mama's voice. Let me one more time. Let me see my son. You conjure up your dog and that. First of all, if you now are a believer, if they died in the Lord, the Bible teaches us we're going to see them again. Now, these are some things that some of us don't like to hear, don't want to hear, don't want to believe, don't think that it is. And we done saw them in our sleep. And, I heard their voice or God brought them to me in a dream. Well, what God did, he gave you a vision of something that you were comfortable with, but it was he himself. But he had to show you something so that you wouldn't be afraid. And so that you wouldn't be afraid, he gave you an image of somebody that you were familiar with so that he could talk to you himself. But he gave you the voice of somebody that would be able to speak to you so that you would still not be afraid and die. Same thing that happened. We always want to do the Daniel fast. We wouldn't be able to handle the voice of God if God himself spoke to us. And we know that we have all of these things that are written for our learning, written for our we're going on here. So go through these things. You're right, because we didn't let go. We didn't make it right. We didn't put it in a place to where we could. So let me take you to the scripture again. Paul says in the book of Ephesians, he said, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. That's what he said, right? Mm-hmm. So now what that simply means, if you had the opportunity before somebody died to make amends for what took place, do not allow them to die, leave this world. Not just for you go to bed at night. My grandmother said, don't go to bed angry with nobody. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're a husband and wife, don't go to bed mad. If you're husband and wife, she said, one thing is all right to be mad from the waist up, but from the waist down, if you're husband and wife, there's no need to be mad at each other. Paul said again, 1 Corinthians chapter 7, you ain't got no power over your flesh as a husband. The wife got that. The wife, the husband got that. You wonder why you having all these issues in your relationship because you're holding on to stuff you ain't got no business holding on to. So we hold on to things that we have no business holding on to. I told you at the table, we talk about everything. And there's a lot of things that we hold on. So you're wondering why that you have all these issues and why the wife going out, why the husband going out. And you heard the old folks say, well, one woman won't do, another woman will. Well, one man won't do, another man will. Because we're doing things that we have no business doing because we're not taking care of home. Then we don't have the conversations that we should have between husbands and wives. We're not doing the things that should be done. And as leaders, we're not teaching the things that should be taught in our churches like we should. I'm going to call a spade a spade. You can call what you want to call, but I'm going to call it as it is because it's written for your learning. So we let folk die. Now you're mad at your mama, you're mad at your daddy, you're mad at your brother, you're mad at your sister. Now they're dead, now they're gone. There's no breath in the body, as you just heard Evangelist say. Now you're at the grave. I wish we had an opportunity to fix it and we ain't had no, they're alive. Call them on the phone, text them, tell them let's go out to eat somewhere, do a barbecue, let's get together. Something wrong with that. They might be 30 miles away. Some of them, they right down the street. They right next door. They right across the bayou. They right around the corner. They right around the corner. Rich around the corner, like your grandma said. Rich around the corner. Rich around the block. Some of them still in the same house with you. They across the street, literally. Walk out your yard and they're in the yard. Walk across the yard. And you really won't do it until somebody dies. Some of y'all won't see y'all mad at y'all cousins that stay 2 miles away from you. And you won't go fix it. Why? Because of something that happened at the last family barbecue, at the last family wedding.
Come on.
You mad because somebody beat you on the basketball court. You mad because somebody beat you in softball. They outran you on the... It is what it is. At some time, the body gonna break down. You mad because you didn't get the solo at church and they pastor picked somebody else to sing the solo. Pastor asked somebody else child to do the Easter, whatever, and you mad. And these are the little simple things that we're upset with. You done left the church because pastor didn't pick your child. Pastor didn't pick you. And the pastor is your uncle. Pastor was your daddy. Pastor was your cousin. Pastor was your brother. And it's bad. I got a lot of family members that were pastors and aunts and stuff that was teachers in the church. You didn't like what was said because that ain't what you wanted to hear. You thought they were going to take your side, but they didn't take nobody's side. They took the side of what the Lord said was right, but you didn't want to hear that because you just knew. Oh, then you got mad because you thought you knew something about them and you were getting ready to expose them, but you didn't realize that they had already sat down with their spouse and told them what was going on, but what you thought was going on wasn't going on because the wife already knew what was happening. And this is the problem that we have because we feel we have the upper hand on folk and we have things that we harbor. I'm going to use this word because there's a lot of people that are hoarders. Y'all know the show Hoarders, where they go in and people got stuff in cars, stuff in the garage, bedrooms got stuff in it, in the bed, the room that they sleep in, they can't even sleep in the bed because they got junk all in there, closets full of stuff, can't even get clothes out the closet because they got junk everywhere and they still ordering stuff off the television. You can't even see the TV like you should because they can't change the channel. They're stuck on one channel because they got all kind of junk around it. They got junk in the yard and in the backyard, and they got nice houses, but the house is full of junk. And they got to pay somebody to have a television show to help get your house clean because you won't clean the house. And they can't even take a bath and eat because the bathroom is full of stuff. All they can do is go in the bathroom and stand in front of the zinc, the lavatory for educated folk, and take a bird bath. I was being nice about that one. And it's sad because we hold on to things that we can let go. You mad at your childhood friend. And like she said, 10, 20, 30 years, you won't even speak to them. They're in the hospital dying, they're on the ventilator. And when you hear about it, you hoping they can hear you. You hoping they just squeeze my hand. Let me know you heard what I said. Let me know you know that I'm sorry and you forgive me. Thing about it is that they hear you, but ain't nothing they can do about it.
Amen.
So tonight, that's the beginning of our new topic. What are you holding on to? What you holding on to? And we on our way to heaven. When all of us get to heaven, Jesus is going to open the book. And he's going to read every one of our pedigree.
Yes, Lord.
Have we really let some things go? Are we really living free? I sleep good at night. I ain't got nothing I'm holding on. Yeah, I go to sleep. And I know my wife, If she is, she fooling me, because as soon as her head hit the pillow, I'm going to tell y'all, about 2-3 seconds after that woman's head hit the pillow, I ain't never seen nobody in my life like my family. My family head hit the pillow. I'm telling you, they had a contest for going to sleep. My family, you get them 3 to 5 seconds, and I ain't talking about play sleep. This ain't no play sleep. My family, 3 to 5 seconds, they literally sleep, literally. I'm still fighting 20 minutes later to fall asleep, and they are sleeping. I'm talking about they calling hogs all the way from Louisiana on the bayou. And if my Uncle Bob Seymour was still alive, his hogs would be like, they be coming running up here, down to Florida. That's how loud they be calling them hogs. Them hogs be running, and my Uncle Sam Lee was still alive. His hogs would be running too. My cousin O'Brien would be like, where them hogs going? They be running off of Sam Rapp. Because in 3 to 5 seconds, I ain't talking about 3 to 5 minutes. I'm literally saying 3 to 5 seconds, especially my wife. If she done work 2 days back to back, 12 hours, took her a bath, another take a hot bath. That's a wrap. I can be talking to her 5 seconds later. Ain't no talking to TV, talking to me. And I'm saying, girl, you heard me? I'm like, yeah, I heard you said, no, you didn't. You over there snoring. You snoring all right, good night. So we're saying, at the end of the day, that's what the topic is. I said that being funny, but I was saying that being real. We sleep good at night, because that's when people holding on to stuff, they toss, they turn. She toss and turn because her poor body be tired, and that's just how she sleep. I get in one spot on one side of the bed, and my wife aim at the bed, and she take up the whole bed. And Reb, I got wide shoulders, and I got to sleep in a spot this big because she got to take the whole bed. I said all of that for laughter, but for seriousness, when you have let everything go and your conscience is clear, you don't have restless nights unless the Lord dealing with you. And when God dealing with me, well, I wake up the next day, I'm like, okay, Lord, what we got to do? So have a great night. Think about this topic. We'll come back with you again on Saturday, and we'll go a little bit further. Thank all of you tonight, all of our pastor friends, all of my family that was on tonight, and all of your family tonight, to our evangelist friend from Pakistan. We'll do, Evangelist Rayma, I'm going to do everything I can. We've been trying to get with you for a while. We've been trying to get everything straight. But yes, we would love to do that. I got to get something established where I actually have a time that I can actually do the live with you, so that we can get with you and do the teaching with you in Pakistan. That would be awesome. I got to check my schedule to see how I can actually fit that in. So yes, I do. But let me see how I can fit that into my schedule if you're still watching us. So let me check the schedule to see how it can be done and see what be a good time to be able to do that with you. So for all of you tonight, continue praying with us, continue praying our strength as we do these broadcasts, and as God continue to give us the topic. Like I said, just before we got on is when I got the topic. What are you holding on to? Because our biggest thing is that God give us all freedom. So don't think this is beating nobody down. This is really about us being free, and especially in the season that we're in, and we at that political season, and they're doing everything they can on this side of the world to put you at a place to where you might want to know what you're holding on to, and you might want to let some things go. You might want to let some things go politically as well, and some people go politically. And be careful of who and what you let go, because some people are holding on to the wrong political people. Mm-hmm. So God bless. God bless. We'll see you on Saturday. I see y'all tomorrow, because tomorrow night is our Fire Fuel Wednesday night Bible study. So I see you at 6:25 p.m. tomorrow. Evangelists will be at work. So to be Shepherd and the kids and I tomorrow, and all of you that will join us live on our Bible class on tomorrow night. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. We did 1 hour. We started at 7:51. It's 8:51. So I love you. Not just with the love of Jesus, but with our love as well.
Amen.
Good night.
Good night.